Awesome. Should we get started? Good morning, everyone in the US, and a very good evening to everyone who's joining us in India. My name is Sudeep. I'm the co-founder of Healthark, and it's my pleasure today to introduce all of you to this topic that we'll be discussing for the next 45 odd minutes. We're going to spend time talking about innovating clinical trial design using real-world evidence and real-world evidence data, right? So I think the focus of what we're going to do is to see how RWE can transform clinical trial design, make it a more reflective of real-world conditions and outcomes. We'll also explore how RWE is being used to enhance trial protocols and improve patient selection and outcomes. It's also my honor to introduce you to our moderator for this session today, Julie Kromnock. Julie is a trailblazer in the RWE world. She has over 25 years of experience working and consulting with some of the most impactful companies in this space. She has held senior leadership roles in companies like IBM Watson and Syneos Health. She also very actively mentors and works with startups in this space. We are having a bit of an unfortunate technical issue at her end right now. We can't see her, but we can hear her, and she'll bring a lot of that energy to bear in this conversation. So with that, Julie, hand over to you, and wishing you all the best, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudeep. For those of you that know me in the audience, this is absolutely stifling to not be able to pop out of the screen here and join everyone here, but hopefully the delay will just be, so if you see me join the camera, it'll be sudden and expected, and happy when I get to do that. First of all, the most important part of this session is happening today, which is talking about clinical trials, which every single person in this room has spent the greatest part of their careers in the exciting world of clinical trials. Where we are focusing on today is the dynamic side of real world evidence. Pieces of us, of our career have always been longing for what it would look like if the real world and the real world data matched. So today, first we're going to go through the panel. If we could start like this and give name, company name, role. And then my favorite question is, out of your daily week, what do you spend thinking about improving real world data and real world evidence? And then at the end of this, we'll have kind of a fun little recap of that percentage. But just think of, what percentage of your week goes into this awesome effort. And I don't know where it is on you guys, but we'll start with Chris. He's to the right of me on my screen. So Chris Cameron, if we could start with you, and we'll go around the horn.
All right. No, thanks for the introduction, Julie. Chris Cameron, I'm the Chief Scientific Officer at EVERSANA. Most of my week, I actually spend launching global ITC programs, so global indirect treatment comparison programs, where we try to fill the gaps in terms of comparative data between two treatments that haven't been compared directly in clinical trials. So I spend most of my week trying to evaluate which data source we should use to generate that comparative data, whether that be clinical trial data or RWE. So I'll pass it off to the next person, but that's where I spend most of my week thinking about.
Great, thanks, Chris. Beth, we can move to you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Beth Brooks. I'm from Sanofi, and I am their head of patient insights and behavioral sciences. And I would have to say 50% or more of the time, I am probably cussing out the fact that we don't have better data on the race, ethnicity, gender, age, socioeconomic status of the potential patients that are out there, because big part of my job is supporting the design of inclusive protocols, setting diversity recruitment goals, and providing information that helps us to be better recruiters of and supporters of patients from diverse backgrounds.
Near and dear to my heart. Thanks, Beth. We will definitely be touching on that. Next one I have is Santha.
Samantha, we can't hear you.
You're on mute. There you
Yes,
are.
thank you, Julie, and to Healthark for this wonderful panel, to my fellow panelists for a lively discussion sure to ensue. And I head up data strategy and governance at Bayer Pharmaceuticals and head up for R&D. And much like Chris, 50% of my time is spent on trying to figure out the right data to invest in for R&D purposes. The questions Chris asks are different. The questions R&D folks ask are different, but we are tapping on much of the same kind. There's an overlap in the kinds of data sets that we need, even if and this is where we need as an organization and many organizations to come together, because we need the same data across our R&D and beyond, right? But how should we be mindfully be investing in it and getting more out of the folks that source this data and contract for it in a way that makes it meaningful for us, meaningful for the patients who don't know that their data is being used, and meaningful for every other stakeholder in this continuum from data use to data to insights, from data generation to insights. So I enjoy being at this cross section of this multidisciplinary activity that brings together legal, ethics, procurement, patients, everyone in this conversation on how to make data work for us. And that is a little bit about me, and had the pleasure of also discussing some of this with Beth before, and this is how we've all been. But the two of us are here together in this panel. So.
Well, it's a packed house, and I loved how you described that. We definitely all come from different backgrounds, but it's fun to see us all come together and think about this. I'll now move to Cheyenne.
Thank you so much, Julie. Xiaoyan Wang. I am right now a chief scientist of IMO House, which is a company penetrating 90% of US providers to help them document problem list in EHRs. So that's part of my job. The other part of my job is also I'm academically a professor at Tulane University. So doing academic research specifically on clinical trials, real world evidence and real world data. So I'm a NLP AI scientist by training. So for the typical week of my work, pretty much I work on the research and truly see what kind of technologies we can use to unlock to get more data resources for real world evidence for clinical trials. So we've been touching to unlock clinical notes, literature, social media, patent, health news to get patterns, insights needed for clinical trials. So that's my research end. On the practice end, I've been working with a couple of pharma partners to help them automate the process. For example, how best we can design the clinical trials, design the endpoints, how best we can really support their recruitment, to fund those sites, to fund those PIs, KOLs who treat the patients. So those are kind of my daily work in the practice world for clinical trials. Yeah. Thank you, Julie.
Impressive, Cheyenne. We will definitely come back to you to talk about signal detection and monitoring and some of the areas that I know are a big piece of your world. Last but not least, the most amazing, David. If you could regale us with all the work you're doing in Europe and really that affects the rest of the world. So if you could give an intro for me, it'd be great.
Yep. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate. I'm David Pérez del Rey. I'm associate professor at the Artificial Intelligence Department in the School of Computer Science in Madrid. I mean, I come from the academic world, but from the outcome of European Commission research project, we started to develop a team in Madrid to deal with the data, with integration of the data across the world. in an initiative that was to reuse the data from hospitals for research. And since 2019, that initiative has joined with Trinetics, and that's why I'm here. Because with Matt Michalczuk, that is the Chief Medical Informatics Officer, we have a team in Madrid of around 10 people that we take care of we do three main things. We develop R&D of the tools, AI-based tools to map the data from all the hospitals in the network, to deliver mappings of this data so it can be exploited in the Trinetics network, and also we take care of characterization and data quality of such data. Because I think it's very, it's essential to be able to exploit this data for feasibility, site selection, etc. Especially when it's a global network with data coming from all over the world, with heterogeneity is not only technical with coding, languages, etc., but also cultural, and that's why this joint effort with teams in different parts of the world it was required. So about which part of my week I spend on that is I'm also a professor, so I also like 50% of my time is teaching and dealing with students, etc. The other part is in this with this work, and yeah, we try to ensure that for clinical trial you can use the best data from the hospitals and facilitate the tools. And for me, it's very rewarding after years of research, fundamental research, to apply that and see that data being used in clinical trials and also for observational studies, etc. So it's a pleasure to participate. Thank you.
Thanks, David. So with this esteemed group of people, I know that I feel like we should have a full day to discuss, being that we have professors, academia, and then also the pharma world and AI experts that are dedicating their life to this. One thing that I've noticed throughout the last 3 days is that there is a sense of urgency on what trends are happening. Number one trend that we know is happening that always resonates with us is drug approval. And getting through FDA, EMA increasingly, where we have to look at not only how the approval process is working. We've learned, all of us have been affected by the 21st Century Cures Act, but let's just say, a lot has happened since 2016. So in those years, we need to now look back and say, now that we were asked, and not only can we, but we should be collecting outside of the controlled setting of clinical trials in a traditional format. I want to really invoke what in this team you think can't happen fast enough. So when you think of the trial, and this is just about real world evidence for drug approval, and then we'll move on to some other topics, but starting with drug approval, let's just, and I'll do a raise of hands, whoever wants to go first. If not, I'll I have some ideas on who would have some great thoughts about this. My professor always taught me in real world evidence that it's quality and completeness that will help with drug approval. So what part of your daily lives do you think, and who wants to go first on tackling what can't happen fast enough? Chris.
I can go first. I think if I had any advice for companies, it's if you think of data quality now, you often have different departments within a company, and they may not be coordinated around the acquisition of data. So if you take a large pharma company, you might have a HEOR department, medical affairs, marketing, whatever that may be. They may go out and they may purchase a data set independently of the other groups, and their budget just won't be conducive to acquiring that high quality, rigorous data source they may need. So if you're going to run an external control arm study, you may need a prospective study with very prescribed outcome measurement to align with the clinical trial, they may not have the budget within the HEOR department to get access to that data of that quality. If they were to centralize or better coordinate in a company when they're launching a new product, and invest like early on in this high quality data source, I think it can serve many functions across the company. So in terms of what you can't do fast enough, I think is better coordinate, better centralize, and acquire the highest quality data at the outset that can be leveraged across the different divisions within the company. And I think that'll avoid a lot of the pitfalls you see at the regulatory level, the HTA level. So that would be one piece of advice.
I like it. I'm noting that.
Chris, fantastic. Here's the 1 year that I've been here, and this is, I think every pharma has noticed that we aren't as different business units have been doing our own investments, and it is to our own detriment, both economically, scientifically, and from a quality perspective. And so over the past year, as a data organization within the data science and AI group within Bayer, we've been corralling the herds and everyone to come together into one central approach, if you will, guided by a frame of discussion to source data. And all enabling functions such as procurement, legal, the budgeting process, everything needs to also fall in line to meet that mission of a concerted data acquisition process, right? And so there are I think just to add to that, and this is what we've been exactly doing here at Bayer, and with good success over the past year. It also helps that as an organization, we are fundamentally changing the way we work as from being very hierarchical to being very mission driven. And so all of that is coming together at a good time to help that mission of data. But fundamentally, I think uh, we have to think of our data needs even before we reach that regulatory point, right? What is the scientific question that we are asking along the way, and where might we not have the relevant patience to answer those questions, but could do with data? And I'm speaking of it from the R&D perspective. And an example that Julie and I discussed are the pediatric population, which just like a rare disease population, you will never have enough of people to ever recruit, ever recruit. And so how do you get that pediatric data? And there is a paper that we've published from Bayer where we have used exactly real world data to show how we could how the lack of real world data has prevented us from prescribing a simple technique like nitric oxide for neonates to a broader set of gestational age preterm babies, right? And how standards organize, how and that need brought together different groups with different peer companies and groups to come together to set up a neonatal standards organization where we collect all the data we can at the quality we can, work on it. Of course, curation is a word that will be part of this activity, but still the mission to create standards on pediatric information, neonatal information. What's the blood parameter at 28 weeks gestation versus 29 weeks versus a 42? Segment these pediatric profiles and use them as standards for real world for application in clinical trials, and therefore the approvals and all of that is something that has happened and is continuing to happen. So just examples that have
Agreement. We also, well, I know that in the audience too, you have a group of not only neonate, but rare disease.
Yeah.
So this affects all, and I can tell that Cheyenne and Beth, Cheyenne, do you want to speak into, I know that we sparked a few different things with you, especially around what type of populations, special densities of populations that we can help. I'll let you take it for a few seconds here to tell us what you're thinking.
Thank you, Julie. Love the point you just made on the standards. I want to touch a little bit on that because there are a lot of academic, public, or open source consortium working on that. There was a lot of progress in the past 5-10 years on that. TrinetX was being part of the I2B2 platform on that. So the recent years we have PeopleNet, OMAP, Odyssey communities working on those common data models on standards. I think that there are a lot of things happening there on that. I hope that kind of efforts can be leveraged in clinical trial settings, in real world evidence studies. I think through the COVID period, we see the power of those shared data. So I want to really say, for the community, open to share and open to leverage resources and efforts have been, made in the past, years and through different communities. That's one thing on the standards. The other is also the speed of data processing.
Yep.
Right now, I think the data to our end, claim data or EHR data, or all those data to farmers' end, it's months, 6 months, 9 months, even a year later. So I'm actually working with a lot of colleagues now to see if we can, during the EHR, the data integration documentation process, can we get the data within a few minutes, get those problem lists, get those medications, procedures documented on that real time, process all that, and then get those data delivered to farmer utilization and all that. I think that is one thing is really important because right now the time duration of the data is a big issue there. A lot of clinical trials, because I actually executed 12 clinical trials, they miss those windows because the clinical trial says after a certain event, within 2 weeks, something needs to happen. But the data to pharma and it's 6 months later already.
It is
one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're really giving some insight into, well, first of all, excellent into the structuring, but also what is being structured. So Beth, if you could comment a little bit on, I know you spend your time with inclusion exclusion, being that your background, was also helping women and underrepresented in clinical trials, also gender and ethnicity, which you also mentioned with. What are some of the social areas that you believe that, I know that you're fighting the big fight, but what can we do to help with everyone on the phone to have a better understanding and what to do next?
Yeah, there's almost, and we talked about this a little bit, there's almost an institutional blindness about the fact that when we design our clinical trials, we're designing them for people like ourselves, and people like ourselves have disposable income and have employers who might actually laud us for being clinical trial participants as opposed to penalize us by taking away, working hours and therefore paycheck. And, that is, it speaks to the difficulty level that we need to assume beyond what we typically do today. Little things that matter and requiring a complete medical record, requiring a diagnosis by a specialist, these, and how is this informed by real world data? Well, I can give you a picture of the patient population by zip code and tell you that, the real world data that's out there tells us what the education level is, what the socioeconomic status is. Are these people, if 70% of the population with a given condition that we're trying to research are poverty level or below, then, we should be offering them prepaid debit cards to participate in the clinical studies. But, you were asking also about what can't happen fast enough, as far as I'm concerned, is most of the data that we have available to us is based on an insurance claims data. And that leaves out a huge swath of the population, smaller than it used to be, granted, but the people who don't have insurance in the United States. And these people are some of the most vulnerable. They tend to be a far more diverse group. So it can't happen fast enough, as far as I'm concerned, for us to have a better picture of those diverse populations who are underinsured and currently underrepresented, not only in research, but also in the data.
In the data points, which I'm sure, David, you have something to say about that, because I think one of the areas that you have tackled, which is getting data more complete, including, the sad part of it is we're not capturing all of the NLP across the multiple languages is a challenge. And I know that you have another thoughts on both race and ethnicity as well. So I'll let you kind of give your thoughts on that. I know it's a big part of your day.
Yeah, I mean, related to the coverage, I think it's a very interesting. Nowadays, we can, I mean, the culture is changing. There is a lot of data sharing, a lot of data that is used for primary use for healthcare. We can use it also for research. But this, I mean, the sizes of the data set that we have access now are much larger. But that is, I always say, is not for free in terms of the coverage of the data. It's not the same data set that you go each patient getting the data to go to these large databases from hospitals. So you don't always know if you are catching or covering all the data or not. That makes that the processes have to be different, and that's why I think it's so important to be able to characterize. Also, mostly if you go global, because for per region is very different. There are differences of data. Some things that we assume for one region are completely different. For example, in Europe, we don't it's not a standard to store or to share the race and ethnicity of the patient. So that prevents a lot of other certain studies. But we also have public system that where the patients are more loyal, move less to hospital. So you have a more sound pathway of the patients, or more mortality. It's easier to gather in some regions. So that's why I think these tools allow us to characterize, and then we can properly analyze and interpret the data.
And speaking of the tools, David, I think one thing that you've noticed in Europe is that the differences are that you might have more complete. If we could only pull all these pieces together and say we can get more out of the data completeness, but however, we are lacking, in certain areas. So speaking of the tools, when we refocus this a little bit towards precision medicine, we know all week we've been talking about trends the last 3 days that are vital to our development and what kind of trends we're using in lifestyle data. We know that we're using it specifically in oncology and in certain other rare diseases. My experience was with Keytruda, and my background's nephrology, so I spent a lot of time with renal and pain management. But I know that there's a wide array of areas in precision medicine. Chris, you're working on it to advance that for us. Let's also talk about how precision medicine, what pieces of the precision medicine market do you believe what tools will be needed? What's a top tool? And Cheyenne, I might start with you on this because you're spending a lot of time with the publications, which is our education. So we'll start with that on precision medicine.
All right. So before that, Julie, can I touch?
Oh yeah, please. Yeah.
Beth and David made on the data representativeness and all that. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the data sources we use to really represent our population and really hear different patient journeys from different ethical group or different subset of the patient. So I think besides those claim data, EHR data, registry data, there was other data sources such as social media. Because people actually have their forums or their social media discuss how their access to the care, they've been taking care of their whole patient journey. We published a paper last week on JAMA using social media to unlock for LGBT community what is the pattern of the care, what kind of things we can use to target interventions for this particular group. I think there are those supplementary data sources can be used besides those primary ones. So that's
so you're actually answering both of my questions, both
Yes.
the tools, and the publication and the education.
Right.
And if you had your way with the precision medicine side, what new advances have you seen that have really given you some positive influence that there's an impact coming? What's been the most transformative that have hit your career that you've been impressed by?
That's a beautiful question. I used to work at a company, it's now called GNDX, but basically what it's trying to solve is from all the genetic pickup, because it started as a genetics testing company. It wanted to link all the clinical data to really build up the patient journey from the time before the time of diagnosis, all the genetic makeup, environmental exposures, then to confirm diagnosis, then the treatment journey. So I think that is the way to go.
That is the way to go. Chris, does that ring a bell to you?
Yeah, and
Linking
I
data?
I think data linkage is going to be key. I think, for precision medicine and elsewhere. I mean, I think one of the big advantages, of clinical trials, besides the obvious methodological benefits with randomization, are the well-defined measurements of outcomes. And I think if you think of data linkage and whether it be AI agents coming up, I think you're going to be able to take RWE to a point where by linking as well as leveraging some of these AI tools, we may be able to get and capture data that better reflects what we're capturing in a clinical trial. So you'll link the data, you'll have these the AI agents
AI journey.
and you'll get that full patient journey, so then you can measure them in the same way that you're measuring the clinical trial. I think right now, because everything's kind of captured in silos and it's really inefficient to collect all the data you need from an EHR, but now that's changing in that post-GPT world. I think these are going to kind of come together and allow us to kind of move in that direction of precision medicine.
Well, Chris, you guys have done that in APAC. I mean, you've really, led the way in that area. So
yeah, well, it's things are moving. It's nice to see that acceleration over the past year or two in particular.
Shantha, can we get your thoughts on the precision medicine? I know you've spent time in that field with us.
Yeah. So I know you asked a lot about tools. Yes, connectedness of data is good. The linkage rather is a big thing, but it's also the different kinds, right? You have images, you have omics data, and then there are so many newer data forms that are coming up, and forms, formats, types, the kinds of, and social media, as Shoyang said, so many ways of structured and unstructured data that are coming up together that we must, and all about, say, person X, right, with a disease Y. And how do we connect these many person X's with the same disease Y, presenting this data in different formats? That is the story that we will have to really figure out how to bring them all together. But a different take I want to use on your word tool is people. Right? The more and more, it's not, I mean, there will be data, there will be tools, and in fact they may go faster than this rarer commodity that we have. Are the people that can cross this domain between data and science and play that very good the translating function between the phenotype, the genotype, and any other manifestation of that disease, right? The people that can bring all of this together, those are a rare commodity. the people that can understand the presentation of the data, the statistics of the data, the quality of the disease or the nature of the disease, let's say. That's a very rare commodity, and more, I think people with that multilingual talent will also have to be an investment that all people, all companies, and all, this whole industry at large has to invest in. So that's a different take I have on what is really needed.
I love that you teed me up for the people part of this. We're wrapping up pretty quickly, and we're going to leave with each of us rounding out with one of my favorites, which is what I know for sure about RWE and the people that fuel it, not the tools. So you set that up for me nicely. Thank you. And what I believe in, and why panels like this that represent from all different facets, what we're really doing is creating new synergies and confidence that remind us we're not that far away as long as we have the people to interpret it. And what our goal is with these 3 days also is to have experts like you that are working in the fields every day on from turning real world evidence, real world data, but make it really a proud moment so that it's the data world that looks like us and looks like people that maybe don't look directly like us, but the data starts representing the real world. So our last final shout around will be this. Going around, I just want to say what I know for sure about real world evidence with clinical trials will. So what will change as long as we do what? So I'll say that again. What I know for sure about real world evidence, and this is referencing the people and the people on this panel and others, as long as we, and I'll let you experts finish this, and we will start with Beth.
I know for sure about real world evidence is it's actually the great white hope for transforming healthcare in the United States. It depends upon people providing complete, high quality data on the input end, and that's. I'm not certain. In fact, judging by the level of unknowns in simple things like gender, I'm not certain that the people who are sitting at the keyboards know the vital part that they're playing in generating the body of evidence that we have, that we want, that we need to make this happen, and that we need to do that. So people need to understand their role in this.
I love it. Thanks, Beth. I'm going to send it over to you, David. What I know for sure about real world evidence, as long as we do what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to. It's what we were saying. It's not just about technology, AI. It's going to help us. And it's helping us to scale processes that couldn't be done otherwise or manually. But the main asset is for me, working in these initiatives like Trinetis, the main asset is the team of interdisciplinary and international people that are looking at data from all over the world, from hospitals, from Japan, Taiwan, Brazil, US, Europe, and making compromises and taking decisions together and assumption. For me, that's key, because it's the only way that we can have to answer the question why there is this answer.
So a global footprint is what you're looking at from a global lens. Mm-hmm. I like it. Cheyenne.
Thank you, Julie. So I think there are a lot of areas we can improve in terms of the process administration and regulatory clarity, to make things better, to make clinical trials smoother. I do want to say, I know technology, there was still a lot of limitations and disbelief of the technology, such as AI being such a buzzword, and not everyone believes it. But I still want to say, let's open to technology improvements. As an NLP scientist for 20 years, I see the change happens, and I can tell you every day there are new things coming, new solutions coming. Open to it. So that's pretty much my
awareness and open-mindedness. Absolutely love it. Shanta.
Yep.
One thing I know for sure about real-world evidence, as long as we do what's something we can take away from your wisdom?
As long as we work with our regulators to see that our policies are not at odds with each other. For example, the data privacy laws are in some ways compromising the data generation activity that we need for real world data, right? So the regulatory mechanism as a whole needs to be aligned, right? And not at odds with each other. So that is one thing I think we sorely need, something that is robust and can
unified.
be unified and meaningfully applied for all the bigger ambition.
That's excellent. Thanks, Shanta. And Chris, can you complete us here with regale us with your real world evidence as long as we what?
Yeah, what I know for sure about real world evidence is the progress will continue to accelerate as long as the people continue to learn and leverage the technology, AI, and tools to kind of continue that advancement. I think we've talked about real world evidence for 20 plus years. It's been around. But what I will say is I'm excited about the last 3 to 5 years where you've seen these technological advances kind of catching up. And if people can learn to educate themselves by leveraging these technologies around RWE, apply these technologies to enhance the speed, the efficiency in which we deploy RWE, I think you'll see tremendous progress.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, team. I definitely know we could go on another hour to go deep into, the effects of signal detection, monitoring, diversity, patient population, label expansions, updates. What I think we all have agreed on today from all of our different backgrounds is that we are needing to see more out of the learning and the diversity and the quality seeking people that are here today. That a data future really requires us to be good stewards and walk in and teach what we've learned. And I know everyone on this panel, different than many others, you're not just speaking it, you mean it, and you're taking this back into your field and into your teams. So I guess my ask and all of our asks today combined is that the 1,000+ people that are listening right now, that what you just learned today about clinical trials and the diversity and really deploy for real world, to put real world back into our data world, happens right here, and to teach and learn and act. So thank you everyone for being a part of this. And it's been excellent just to delve into the dynamic world of real world evidence with you. And we think there's going to be many more of these discussions thanks to you.
Thank you all.